25 years ago, Bungie didn't just create a video game, they built a threshold, a doorway into something ancient, mysterious, and utterly transformative. When Master Chief stepped onto Installation 04 for the first time, players weren't just exploring a new world, they were walking through liminal space, that in-between realm where nothing is quite settled, where every corridor has whispers of secrets, and where the line between wonder and dread becomes impossibly thin. And now, with Halo Campaign Evolved announced for 2026, we stand at another threshold. Halo Studios faces a monumental task, and that's rebuilding the original campaign in Unreal Engine 5 while preserving what made it transcendent. And here's what they need to understand. Halo's power didn't come from just its combat or its story. It came from its liminality, that eerie, transitional feeling that permeated every empty hall, every silent vista, every moment between battles. Today, we need to talk about why that matters, why liminality isn't just a cool concept, but the very soul of Halo, at least in Combat Evolved, and why losing it in the pursuit of modern AAA polish could mean losing what made the original unforgettable. My name's Holotide, and in this video I want to take a look at what made Halo Combat Evolved so special with its atmosphere, and I do believe that it comes from liminality. If you enjoy this video, make sure you leave a like down below. If you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe. I could be your third favorite Halo YouTuber. I'm trying to hit 20,000 subs by the end of the year. I could absolutely do it with your help. Push the goddamn button! And with that, let's start with the basics. Liminality comes from the Latin word limen, I think. I don't know if that's actually how you say it, meaning threshold. It describes spaces, moments, or states of being that exist in between. Architecturally, liminal spaces are places built for transition. These include empty corridors, stairwells, parking garages at 3 a.m. They're spaces that feel uncanny precisely because they're supposed to be temporary, yet we often find ourselves lingering in them. But it goes deeper than just architecture. In anthropology, it describes ritual transformations, the ambiguous state between being a child and becoming an adult, between death and rebirth. It's that uncomfortable pause where you're no longer what you were, but not yet what you're going to become. And to me, Combat Evolved is swimming in liminality. From the moment you crash land on the ring, you're thrust into a threshold that's followed by threshold that's followed by threshold. You leave behind corridors of the Pillar of Autumn, humanity's last safe space, and emerge onto an alien ring world that arcs impossibly overhead. You're no longer on a ship, but you're not quite on a planet. You're somewhere in between. And I believe that the developers wanted to make the game feel that way, that everything from the music to the environment was a deliberate attempt to invoke liminality, to make players feel like they stepped into something that existed outside of normal time and space. The monk chants, the heavy silences, the ambient hum of Forerunner technology, the music, all of it is conspired to keep you perpetually unsettled, but also aware that you're trespassing in a place not meant for you. Now, I know that's something that's brought up a lot now, is that the hardware limitations were the real reason why this was done. That's the reason why Halo Combat Evolved looks the way it does. And while I can agree to an extent, I really do feel like all of this was done on purpose. So here's what made Halo different, to me at least, from every other shooter that was out, and that's silence. I think about the silent cartographer, no pun intended. You fight your way through waves of Covenant on a beach, explosions, and there's plasma fire and grenades, and then you descend into the Forerunner facility beneath the island, and suddenly there's silence, just vast, empty chambers, corridors that stretch in the shadows. The only sound is your footsteps echoing off ancient metal walls. These weren't populated spaces, these were transitional activation centers, places built for a purpose we can't comprehend. That Forerunner architecture that's brutalist and minimal, with halls that dwarf the player, and after you clear the enemies and look back, these areas become haunting. It feels like a battlefield that's just been frozen in time. And to me, the genius of Bungie's design was what they didn't put in those spaces. There's no clutter, no decorative flourishes, no audio logs explaining every mystery, just emptiness and implication. Environmental storytelling that let the space do the work. And another thing that I think Bungie understood was contrast, light and dark, natural and artificial. The game constantly pushes you across thresholds, from the claustrophobic ship interiors to the open ring, from sunlit islands to underground complexes, from the safety of human zones to the terror of flood-infested passages. Again, these weren't just transitions, these were narrative thresholds that kept you in a state of perpetual in-betweenness. Looking back, I think of 343 Guilty Spark, and that is a level that really exemplifies Halo's liminal horror. Up until that point, you had been fighting the Covenant. This was an enemy that had clear motivations. But then, the game rips you away from that certainty. You descend into a swamp at night, you find human and Covenant corpses together, Cortana is silent, and then you meet the Flood. And while yes, they are scary because they are grotesque, but they're also scary because they represent a fundamental threshold violation. The boundary between life and death has collapsed. These were your allies and your enemies, and now there's something completely different. They're neither alive nor dead, and this is liminality incarnate. The ring itself, it's revealed to be a weapon to destroy all sentient life in the galaxy to stop the Flood. An insane paradox when you think about it. You must destroy everything to save everything. Life through death, salvation through annihilation. And something that I think is genius is that Master Chief becomes a liminal hero in this moment. He's humanity's last hope, but to fulfill that role, he must become something other than human. He has to become a weapon, a destroyer, a necessary evil. Just chef's kiss. And now we come to Halo Campaign Evolved, and here's where we need to be honest. Modernization is a double-edged sword. They've said that they wanted to preserve the atmosphere, the tone, the emotional impact of what made that first campaign so special and iconic. They say that every change is being guided by asking, does this feel like Halo? But here's the problem, in my opinion, that modern AAA is just antithetical to liminality. That's why games don't look like they used to. Modern games fear silence. They fill every moment with chatter, from squad makes providing exposition to audio logs to waypoints showing you exactly where to go. Modern games fear emptiness. They pack those environments with detail, with visual noise. Look at how much we've done. And I also think, crucially, modern games fear player confusion. They add objective markers, they streamline level design, they remove anything that might cause a player to wander or feel lost. But that wandering, that momentary disorientation, that was magic. And that's something that I'm worried about with the new remake. And I think that concern is legitimate. We've seen glimpses into the gameplay footage. The environments are gorgeous. They're rendered in Unreal Engine 5, but there's a subtle loss of that eerie, ancient quality. Everything is more detailed, more realistic, more explained. The mystery feels diminished just slightly. The atmosphere requires careful preservation because visual fidelity must enhance, not diminish, the sense of mystery. While this may be the best looking Halo game of all time, we have to ask, at what cost? So what specifically does Halo Campaign Evolved need to protect? I think, first off, the silence. I think that after the combat has ended, you need to let spaces breathe. Don't fill the void with chatter or music. Let players walk through those empty Forerunner halls with only the sound of their footsteps. The anticipation, the sense that something could happen. I think that's what we need. Second, restraint. Chief barely spoke in the original game, and that silence was his character. His stoicism let us project ourselves into his armor. Don't give him all the quippy one-liners in the book, and don't make Cortana explain every plot point. Trust the environment to tell the story. Third, the emptiness. Not every surface needs detail. Not every room needs props. The Forerunner structures should feel deliberately sparse, built for a function we can't fully grasp, and then they were abandoned for millennia. The emptiness is unsettling in the right way. Then the mystery. I don't want over-explanation of the Forerunners. Don't add terminals that spell out every detail of the ring's construction. Leave gaps. Leave shadows. Leave whispers. Leave players with questions that haunt them after the credits roll. You want them to think about the story after they've finished the game. You want them to ask why or wonder what if. And finally, the contrast. Keep those sharp transitions between environments. The shift from sunlight to darkness, from open spaces to those tight corridors, from natural beauty to artificial geometry. These thresholds need to feel jarring. Now, the Unreal Engine 5 is an incredible tool. It can create photorealistic environments that absolutely were impossible in 2001. But to me, photorealism is not and should not be the goal here. Halo's visuals worked because they were stylized. The Forerunner architecture had a clean, almost abstract quality. The fog obscuring distant chasms wasn't just a technical limitation, it became atmosphere gold. I think that these geometric, brutalist structures felt alien because they weren't trying to look real. And to me, the challenge for Halo Studios is resisting the Unreal Engine 5's capabilities. You can render every scratch on every surface, every particle of dust in the air, every photon of light bouncing through a scene, but you need to ask, should you? Or will that level of detail make everything feel too grounded, too real, and rob it of that otherworldly threshold space quality that the original game had? Some fans worry that in the gameplay footage shown so far, the environments look almost too beautiful, too inviting. The original Halo's beauty was always tinged with unease. You could admire the ring arcing overhead while simultaneously feeling a sense of wrongness. And here's where things get even more interesting, in my opinion, with the remake. They're adding 3 new prequel missions featuring Chief and Sergeant Johnson, and this is a massive opportunity and also a massive risk, because if done right, these missions could deepen the sense of mystery. They could show us the moments before the ring revealed its true nature, the calm before the cosmic horror. They could enhance the liminality by giving us thresholds to cross, new transitions from the known to the unknown. But if done wrong, they could over-explain. They could fill in gaps that were better left as mysteries. They could add exposition where implication was better. Again, the key is restraint. Show us new corners of Installation 04, but don't explain them. And that's if these missions take place on the installation. And if they don't take place on the installation, then I think that this whole section has been a moot point and is stupid. Now, we've been here before. In 2011, Halo Combat Evolved Anniversary remastered the original game with new graphics, and some could argue that it looked impressive. Many fans felt it lost something crucial in translation. The new art style added detail where the original had abstraction. It made explicit what was once implied. It filled in visual gaps that, in retrospect, were better left as gaps. The Flood looked more disgusting, but somehow less unsettling. The Forerunner structures looked more detailed, but less alien. Now, Anniversary was a remaster, not a remake. It preserved the original gameplay and structure. Campaign Evolved is going further, completely rebuilding everything. That gives Halo Studios more freedom, but also more ways to miss the mark. But I will say the developers seem aware of this. They've emphasized the preserving elements of the original Blam engine code to maintain Halo's distinct physics and AI behavior. They're not just building something that quote-unquote looks like Halo, they want it to feel like Halo, but feelings are harder to preserve than code. Liminality isn't in a physics engine, it's in the pacing, the framing, the silence. It's knowing when to do less, not more. Now, some of you might be thinking, it's just a video game, why are you making a video this long about it? Why does preserving some atmospheric quality matter so much? And because Halo Combat Evolved isn't just a piece of gaming history, it's proof that blockbuster games can be atmospheric, mysterious, restrained, that you don't need to constantly explain everything or fill every silence with noise, that players are smart enough to piece together meaning from environment and implication. And like I said, in 2025, most AAA games are absolutely terrified of letting players feel uncertain or lost. They're designed to be frictionless experiences that never risk player confusion. Objectives are always marked. Progress is always clear. Every story beat is explicitly stated, and that's fine for some games, but it means we've lost something. To me, We've lost that feeling of being genuinely unsettled or wandering through spaces that don't care whether we understand them or not. And I think if Campaign Evolved can recapture Halo's liminality while modernizing its gameplay, it could be a reminder to the industry as a whole that atmospheric restraint is still powerful, that silence is still meaningful, and mystery is still valuable. One game franchise I look at now is Destiny, and how everything has been explained in that game, and it just makes me sad. But if the remake succumbs to modern AAA conventions with constant chatter and over-explained lore and waypoints leading you by the hand, then it'll just be another pretty remake that misses what the original one had that made it so transcendent. Halo Studios stands at a threshold of their own making. Behind them, the expectations of millions of fans, the legacy of Bungie's original vision, the weight of 25 years of Halo history, and ahead, uncharted territory, new audience discovering Halo for the first time, the technical possibilities of the Unreal Engine, and the ever-present pressure to modernize. Now, the safe path is clear. You make it prettier, you add more weapons, you streamline the experience, you explain everything away, you give the players exactly what they expect from a 2026 AAA game. But safety is not what made Halo legendary. Combat Evolved was brave enough to let you wander a silent beach, brave enough to drop you in underground complexes with no clear guidance, brave enough to let its most terrifying moments play out in near silence. It trusted players to feel the atmosphere, to piece together the story, to embrace the uncertainty of standing at cosmic thresholds. And I think Campaign Evolved needs that same bravery. It needs to remember that liminality, that uncomfortable, transitional, threshold-dwelling feeling isn't a flaw to be fixed. It's the secret ingredient that made Halo magical. Because, in the end, Halo wasn't about just shooting aliens on a ring in space. It was about standing on the edge of human comprehension, staring up at impossible architecture, feeling the weight of ancient mysteries pressing down on you. It was about crossing threshold after threshold, never quite sure what you would find on the other side, but knowing that you had to keep moving forward. And I think that that's a feeling that's worth preserving. That's the sacred threshold we need Campaign Evolved to honor. And I think if Halo Studios can do that, if they can rebuild the campaign while keeping its liminal soul intact, then we'll all get to walk through that threshold again, not just as a trip down memory lane, but as a reminder of what games can be when they trust players to embrace the unknown. And I hope that Halo Studios remembers that the best journeys always begin at a doorway, and going through that doorway is uncertainty. That's going to do it for this video, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you enjoyed. I poured a lot of love and time and thought into this video. So let me know in the comments down below how you feel. I read every comment. This is something that is very important to me, if you can't tell. But I will catch you guys around the ring. Peace!